Today we get a story time of a Gen Z kid who wants attention so badly that they literally fake being disabled and in a wheelchair. Eventually, the Gen Z kid does slip up and gets exposed, and karma is proven once again to actually be real. I know you guys will enjoy this story, so sit back, relax, subscribe if you're new, and let's jump right into it. So we're going to call the subscriber submitted today's story Ryan. So anyways, in Ryan's class, there's this one Gen Z kid who loved attention. The Gen Z kid would always post stuff on TikTok being like, I had a bad day or whatever. And look, it's totally fine to want attention. However, it's definitely both the quantity of times that you ask for it and the way that you go about it. Look, attention is necessary, especially for human beings. They need attention from their other human beings, right? It's good for your health, whatever. However, I think we all know that one person who just goes way too far to get the attention or they're just super annoying about it. The Gen Z kid was no different. And the Gen Z kid in this case goes way too far because look, I find it annoying when people try and get attention in annoying manners, as most people do. However, it's different from being annoying and pretending that you are literally physically disabled in a wheelchair just to get attention. There is a very clear difference, and the Gen Z kid very obviously crossed the line. So the Gen Z kid was never in a wheelchair. They didn't even come into school with a boot. They never had anything like that. But one day, Ryan was sitting in class and just thought it would be a normal day in class. He thought he'd start off the day, normal day, whatever. And that's when the Gen Z kid comes in a wheelchair, wheels into class. Obviously, this is a really big deal. I mean, you should treat everyone the same, but when someone that you've been going to school with for a very long time just suddenly doesn't even walk in, wheels in a wheelchair, bro, you're definitely going to ask some questions because it's not just someone's like, you know what, I feel like being in a wheelchair today. I mean, the Gen Z kid actually was like that, but no one with a sound conscience would ever do that, right? So anyways, obviously the Gen Z kid gets a lot of attention, including the teacher kind of stops class because the Gen Z kid was a little late, but the teacher's not going to be like, should have wheeled her quicker, bro. The teacher's going to be like, oh my God, what happened? So the teacher and everyone in class, they were just like, oh my God, what happened? Is everything okay? And the teacher's like, I didn't get a note from your parents about this. Not in an accusatory way, because in the very beginning, no one suspected, even for a second, that the Gen Z kid was faking it. Even though the Gen Z kid was notorious and had a history of faking things for attention, or not even faking things, but just trying to get attention at all costs, nobody possibly thought that the Gen Z kid would fake being physically crippled in a wheelchair. No one would ever believe that. And the teacher, when the teacher said, oh, your parents didn't even tell me about this, more of a kind of a statement of surprise than a statement of, I think you're faking this. Obviously, in retrospect, this was the first in a major red flag, but no one at the time, not even Ryan, ever thought anything about it. So the Gen Z kid basically goes on to say, make up this fabricated story. No one at the time realized it was fabricated, but the Gen Z kid basically went on to say something along the lines of, yeah, I was, I went to the doctor, I wasn't feeling good, and it turns out my legs may never work again. And the thing is, that is a very serious thing that happens to some people. It's very uncommon, but it is very serious, and your life will never be the same. If you all of a sudden cannot use your legs, then your life will never be the same, bro. I think that's pretty obvious. And yeah, using someone else's situation, a tragic situation that they have to go through the trials and tribulations of life, giving you the biggest curveball ever to your advantage because you want attention is pretty sickening. But anyways, and also, first of all, the Gen Z kid could have been like, oh, I broke my leg, I'm going to be in this for months. But the Gen Z kid makes up a story even more crazy. The Gen Z kid, literally says that they might be, disabled forever, bro. Because the thing is, if the Gen Z kid really just wanted attention, say that you break your leg, you'll have attention for at least a month or something, then you can start walking normally again and no one will ever bat an eye, right? However, the Gen Z kid's like, no, I think I might not be able to, ever walk again. And while the Gen Z kid didn't give a lot of specific details about their condition, well, because the condition didn't exist, no one really questioned it. Because why would you go about questioning someone who literally wheels in with a wheelchair? I don't know about you, but probably the first thing that would come out of my mouth would be like, hey, dude, if there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. Not, I don't believe it. I think you're faking your disorder. That is not something that you'll hear coming out of my mouth. And so everyone was very just oh my God, let me help you. A bunch of kids got up to make way. Every kid basically said, you can take my seat, like whatever, like, oh, I'll move my desk out of the way, don't even worry about it, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. Everyone was being as good as they possibly could be to the Gen Z kid, giving the Gen Z kid a copious amount of attention. Little did they know, they were all falling into the Gen Z kid's plot. The plan that was not very meticulously, planned out, because as you'll see, the Gen Z kid, got the karma that they deserved because they made a massive mistake and exposed themselves, but that will be happening a little later on, so stick around for a second, it's worth it. But anyways, yeah, for a little while, everyone is just like giving the Gen Z kid the utmost attention, being like, whatever you need, whatever you want, we got you. However, as the days and soon weeks went on, one thing was very clear. The Gen Z kid was definitely using it to their advantage. One thing I will say is that most of the classmates didn't really care about this, because if someone is, genuinely comes in and, with a life-changing disability, then you will accommodate it for them. However, some classmates, including Ryan, were starting to believe that it just felt a little bit strange that the Gen Z kid all of a sudden was asking for people to do their homework, or, to go do certain tasks that you didn't really need legs to do. Obviously, no one really questioned it at the time and just believed that, the stress of completely changing someone's situation was enough to, what, they are going through enough right now, let me lighten the burden. Very, reasonable thing to believe. However, this is where things began to, people weren't suspicious, but they were beginning to become almost suspicious a little bit. And also the big thing is no one outwardly wanted to admit that they were suspicious, because it just seemed like a really, not a great thing. I mean, your classmate is going through a very difficult situation, according to them. I mean, they literally roll in with a wheelchair all of a sudden. Your first assumption is not going to be, oh, they're faking it. Your first assumption is going to be like, oh my God, that's terrible. What can I do for you? Yeah, however, Ryan was with his friend one Friday night, 2 weeks after the whole, Gen Z kid rolls in a wheelchair, and he's having a sleepover, and it's late at night. I don't know if you guys ever had these, but these were my favorite parts of sleepovers as a child. Basically, the late night conversations with the boys or girls or whatever, right? But specifically from my experience, the late night conversation with the boys, right? You've already played your video games, you've already gone out, you've already done stuff, and you're basically just staying up later than you tell your parents you're actually staying up. And you're just around by a flashlight or whatever. And then you just have really deep and meaningful conversations, or just the most interesting conversations that last way, way into the night. So Ryan was having one of those conversations, and he's like, I have a thought that's kind of bad, but I don't know how to go about it. Obviously, when someone says that, there's a lot of things that they could be saying. So Ryan's friend's like, oh, what do you mean by that? And Ryan's like, don't judge me by this, but can you hear me out? So Ryan's friend, we'll call him Ben, is like, sure, whatever, just tell me, it's cool. I'll use the caveat of I'm not going to go crazy if you say something weird, right? And he's basically like, look, I know this might be bad of me to say, but I'm a little suspicious of the Gen Z kid. It just feels they might actually, I'm not saying that they're not disabled, but it just seems weird how they're going about it. It seems as if they're asking people to do their homework when that doesn't make sense that they're disabled. I understand asking people to go get their books or to move their books from class to class, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And also the fact that the teacher never got a note from the parent, that just doesn't make sense to me either. I'm not saying that they're faking it. And it's funny because Ben didn't have a shocked look on his face. Ben didn't have a disgusted look on his face. Ben kind of had a very blank look. A blank look of kind of keep going, and I'm going to agree with you. So by the time that Ryan was done telling Ben about his kind of his deep personal thoughts that you would only tell someone at the very late nights of the boys' sleepover, mid-deep conversation, right? Kind of very exposing himself, and where, he kind of, part of him was afraid that Ben was going to be like, how dare you say these things? Our classmate is going through such a difficult time, whatever, right? But Ben is just kind of silent. And there's a couple seconds of silence until Ben breaks the silence by telling Ryan, hey man, I've been kind of thinking the same thing, but there's no way I could possibly say anything. So then they're both kind of more free to speak, and they start going on about all the anomalies and all the inconsistencies with what's going on. So at this point, the Gen Z kid has not completely exposed themselves. The Gen Z kid has not done and later on in the story, the Gen Z kid exposes themselves so bad and exposes themselves in front of every single person. And it's so clear and so obvious that it almost proves karma's true. So stick around for that. But up until this point, the Gen Z kid has been fairly good about their act. However, there are a few inconsistencies. The things that are becoming annoying is the fact that the Gen Z kid is asking for more and more for people to do, which, look, it's understandable. If you come in with some disability that makes life harder for you, then it is kind of expected for your community to kind of step up, especially if you ask. For example, I can only imagine, maybe carrying a backpack from class to class or a bunch of heavy books when you're in a wheelchair would be difficult. So asking a classmate to help you out in that department is not unreasonable or ridiculous or anything like that. However, asking classmates to do homework or people would bring in their own food and the Gen Z kid would roll over to them, give them big puppy eyes and be like, man, it's been so hard ever since I've been in this wheelchair. Can I have your cookie? Very obvious emotional manipulation, very blatant stuff that seems to be almost using the fact that they're in a wheelchair to kind of get stuff out of them. And I don't know about you, but I feel like people who actually have that, disabilities and stuff like that wouldn't use it like that. It's something that they actually have to live with. Obviously, the Gen Z kid doesn't understand the gravity of, the situation that they're basically cosplaying as, right? Because they don't actually live it. So anyways, if you made it this far into the video, comment share down below. We'll make that the secret word of the day. And while you're down in the comment section commenting share, make sure to check out the pinned comment, because in the pinned comment, there's a link to my Spotify account in which I upload these stories as podcasts. Feel free to listen to them on there, as it also helps me out. And also the second link in the pinned comment is a link to my second channel, Connor Stories, in which I read stories not from you guys submitting it to me, but from Reddit. Please subscribe to that channel as it is newer, and your views will go so much farther because it's such a small channel. Anyways, let's get back to it. So Ryan and Ben both have similar suspicions. And so Ryan decides that he wants to do a little bit of investigative work. So anyways, the students are picked up after school every day. Some kids walk home, but a lot of them are picked up. Ryan knows that, the Gen Z kid doesn't, Ryan doesn't know exactly where the Gen Z kid lives, right? However, Ryan also knows that the Gen Z kid doesn't walk home from school, or I guess would wheel back home from school at this point. So, if you're in a wheelchair, you're definitely not going to wheel 25 minutes unless you're that's your life and you're trying to do it for exercise. I don't know, right? I don't know. But Ryan knows that this kid doesn't walk home from school. So Ryan knows that they must be picked up. So Ryan, while not necessarily expecting anything, is just curious. So Ryan walks home from school. So he kind of has all the time in the world to get back. Obviously, if he waits an hour, his mom will be nervous and concerned and be like, where have you been, etc., whatever, right? However, right, Ryan decides to basically follow the Gen Z kid somewhere, right? And the Gen Z kid kind of wheels out of class, and Ryan is very sneakily kind of following them while being kind of far away, while not being too far away, and watches as they don't go out the main exit. Because one thing he noticed was the Gen Z kid basically disappeared after school, and it was very weird. Ryan thought that, they must have gotten picked up early, or maybe they just got picked up somewhere else or something like that. Never really thought about it, but he's like, I don't know, there's just inconsistencies with their story, and I just want to watch, right? He wasn't sure what he was looking for. He just knew that he was looking for something, and something he did find. So anyways, sure enough, the Gen Z kid rolls, instead of going out the front door, goes out the back door, which is just very weird, right? Very weird. And starts and Ryan, very carefully, right? He has to be very careful following her because he doesn't want to get exposed, right? Or he wants to catch her in the natural act if she's doing anything, right? So he watches and he follows behind her. And the Gen Z kid is wheels out the back door, and Ryan sneaks out the back door, wheels down a one street, right? And then there's this weird place. There's this old garage, a big garage that would have all these has bicycles and old rusted out equipment. It almost seemed to be abandoned, but sometimes people just store stuff in there. And the Gen Z kid wheels into the garage. This is very, very strange behavior. So Ryan, while making sure that he's not going to get exposed, still follows behind closely. That's when Ryan sees something completely shocking. It's not as if he didn't see this coming, but he also didn't see this specifically coming. The Gen Z kid walks out of the barn. Listen to me again. The Gen Z kid walks out of the barn. The Gen Z kid does not wheel out of the barn. The Gen Z kid walks out of the barn. Yes. The Gen Z kid wheels into this barn, garage type thing, and then walks out of it without a wheelchair. Ryan watches as the Gen Z kid, right, once again, like, walks out and then, like, kind of looks in both directions to make sure no one notices and kind of, like, runs down the street to where, you know, their mom is, like, idling in their car. I can't assume I don't actually know the details, and by I mean Ryan does not know the actual details, but Ryan would love to believe that the mom doesn't know any better. Ryan would love to believe that the mom is not implicit on, you know, their, you know, child's, games, right, to get attention using other people's suffering. What might have happened was that the child's like, I don't want to be picked up in front of everyone. It gives me anxiety or something. Like, please pick me up here. Please, mom, please. It's like, doctor says you have to do, I don't know. Maybe some kind of guilt trip or something like that. And the mom's like, okay, you know, when I was a teenager, I was kind of weird too, so I'm just not going to question it. So Ryan immediately calls up his friend Ben once the Gen Z kid drives away and is like, Ben. And Ben's like, what's up, dude? He's like, Ben, you're not going to believe what happened. And so Ryan explains everything, and Ben is dead silent the entire time. You know someone's really interested in every detail of a story when they don't say a single thing. Like, when I like a story, I might pipe in a little bit and be like, dang, bro, like, that's crazy. But when I'm really, really locked in, I don't say a word. And Ben was the same. And by the end of it, Ben was like, someone's got to expose her, bro. And Ben was being serious. He was like, this is, like, unethical behavior, and someone's got to put an end to this. So Ben and Ryan meet up after school, and they meet up at Ryan's house. And they're just sitting in Ryan's room, and they're just kind of like trying to contemplate, like, okay, how do we go about this? How do we, like, how can we do this? Because, like, we can't just, like, go up to her in school and, like, push her out of the wheelchair. Because, like, I don't know, she might fake it and be like, oh, my God, and then we'd actually be expelled, right? We need to figure out a way to catch her in the act. We can't question her. And that's when Ryan's like, I got it. Assuming that she, you know, does the same thing every single day, I was able to secretly follow her before, I should be able to secretly follow her again. And Ben's like, all right, that's genius. Just make sure to record it this time. So sure enough, right, the next day comes around. And once again, you know, the Gen Z kid wheels out in the back hallway, right? So Ryan decides that he's going to record the entire thing. So he starts recording and follows her out. So Ryan does what he did the last day, following the Gen Z kid as they wheel out in the back of the school, go out like down the street, go down a couple streets to the abandoned kind of like garage warehouse type area, wheel into it, and then walk out of it. But unlike last time, this time he's recorded the whole thing. He makes sure that he's recording, he makes sure the audio is good, he makes sure that, you know, I mean, he's sneaking around while recording, so it's not going to be the best video, but especially in the most damning moments, aka when they walk in or they wheel in and walk out, he's making sure that that is very, very clear, and that is very, very, that is like, the video is not shaky at this point. So afterwards, you know, the same thing happens again. They walk into the car and drive off. Ryan calls up his friend Ben, and Ben's like, well, how did it go? And Ryan sends him the video, and after watching it, Ben's like, all right, wow, like, this is actually like bulletproof evidence right here. So they don't know exactly how to go about doing this. They think, okay, well, maybe we could send it to the teachers or whatever. Maybe whatever, we could keep this really quiet. Maybe we could send it to the Gen Z kid and be like, we know that you're faking it. Like, you need to, like, stop doing this, and give them the benefit, give them the courtesy to be like, oh, guys, I'm actually okay now. Thank you so much, whatever. But no, Ryan and Ben decided that, you know what, the Gen Z kid did not give any courtesy or the Gen Z kid was not polite. The Gen Z kid did not give courtesy to the people who actually suffer with this stuff. The Gen Z kid did not actually, you know, care or give, like, you know, any credit. Like, I don't know. They just felt like, you know what? No, like, the Gen Z kid deserves to be torched for this, basically. Not literally, guys. Come on now. But so they decide that what they're going to do is, instead of going to the teachers of the Gen Z kid themselves, they are going to disseminate this video across social media, and not like try and get a viral TikTok, but at least try and get it on everybody's private Snapchat story. Try and get it, like, pushed around. Try and get it sent to every group chat in the frickin' grade. And they do so pretty easily. So they text up a bunch of guys and a bunch of girls that they know and be like, look, you know, the Gen Z kid, here's proof that they're not actually, like, disabled and they're faking it the whole time. And sure enough, the video spreads like wildfire. And by the end of the night, I'd say 90% of the kids in school have seen the video, and 98% know about the video. If they have about 98% at least know about the video. So by the next day, when the Gen Z kid wheels into school, everybody's just staring at them with this look of like, I know the truth. For some reason, I think the Gen Z kid just didn't know that the video was circulating. Or even if the Gen Z kid did learn about it, I guess they decided to stick to the lie and just wheel into school, assuming that, no one would actually confront them if they were in a wheelchair. Yes, to say the least, people stopped doing what the Gen Z kid said. When the Gen Z kid was like trying to get attention, trying to get people to do stuff, people ignored them. And eventually the video actually made its way to the principal's office / the faculty staff. And the faculty staff suspended the Gen Z kid for an entire week. I mean, it's totally understandable. And after the entire week, the Gen Z kid had to walk to the front of class, or not the front of class, but the front of everyone, because they had like bi-monthly meetings or whatever where they'd all come together as an entire school. And the Gen Z kid had to walk on stage, not wheel on stage, walk on stage and give a public apology, and was also forced to meet with someone who actually lives like completely disabled from the waist down to learn about the true struggle. It was a very harsh punishment, but it definitely fits the crime. How's it going, everyone? Today we have a story of one of the cringiest Gen Z kids of all time. Basically, this Gen Z kid takes an IQ test, believes that he's genuinely a genius, and then starts to berate everyone else. And then he does a whole host of some of the craziest things you have ever heard. So sit back, relax, subscribe if you're new, leave a like on the video to claim your free nothing, and let's jump right into it. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted today's story James. Anyways, right, James is a freshman in high school, and in his class, there's a kid who we're going to call the Gen Z kid. And when I say Gen Z kid, I don't mean someone literally in Gen Z. It's kind of just a term given to people that spend all of their life on TikTok, that, cancel people on Twitter, that just do a lot of dumb stuff like that. Everyone, it doesn't mean just because you're in a certain generation, just to be clear. Anyways, though, this story all starts one day when the Gen Z kid does one of those IQ tests you find online. So if you don't know, you can actually get like a official IQ test, and an IQ test is only so good for certain things. It'll figure out pretty good how good you are at solving problems, but intelligence has a bajillion factors in it, and you can't just take one test and really decide how smart you are just based off of that. And also, those online tests, a lot of them are BS and made up. And a lot of them are just trying to get you to click so that you'll watch the advertisements on their website. Anyways, though, so sure enough, one day in class, the Gen Z kid clicks on one of these, like, it's just like on TikTok, and gets like one of those like TikTok ad whatever things for like, how smart are you really, whatever, right? So the Gen Z kid clicks on the IQ test and proceeds to take it. The thing is, though, that none of the other that the subscriber James and all the other people in the Gen Z kids class was aware of was that the Gen Z kid literally just put in the answers randomly. It was a pretty fake IQ test. It was like 10 questions, right? It was 10 questions long. So like an actual IQ test would probably have a lot more questions. The questions would be a lot more difficult. But even though this was only 10 questions long and the questions were probably just like, oh, is this the color red? And then it shows the color red. The Gen Z kids still completely randomly guessed these questions, which would be revealed later on to James, the subscriber, and everyone else. But basically, after spamming in these questions, hitting submit on the IQ test, it came back with like 10 out of 10 questions answered correctly, which is actually statistically pretty impressive to get them all randomly correct. Maybe this website just told you everything was correct anyways, and labeled them with the score of intellectual genius, genius level IQ, or whatever you want to say. So look, the Gen Z kid who believes everything that they see on TikTok anyways, imagine they see an IQ test calling them an actual genius. So one, do you think that the Gen Z kid believes that, okay, well, I took an IQ test, right? And I put in the answers randomly, and it was a sketchy website that I found on TikTok. Maybe, just maybe, I'm not actually a genius. Or two, do you believe that the Gen Z kid, saw the site, it said genius, and believes I'm actually smarter than Einstein. I am actually a genius. I am the smartest man on planet Earth, and I will let everyone know and berate them because they are not as highly intelligent as I am, or I see myself to be. If you guys answered the first one, well then, you're a good person, you think the best in everyone else, but if you guys answered the second one, you might be a bit more cynical, but you are correct. Sure enough, the Gen Z kid, right, they see this, right? They see this result that they did so well on this IQ test. And they immediately light up, right? Because now they've always thought they're always a little narcissistic, right? You know, it's a lot of TikTok, a lot of Gen Z just tend to be a little bit narcissistic. I mean, it's kind of the environment that we put ourselves in. But now it's like it's all been justified in this kid's head. Like, oh my God, I actually am a genius. I actually am the smartest man on planet Earth. I need to let everyone else know. So this is where the subscriber, who we're calling James, really starts to play a role in the story. So a little later in class, James, they're put into groups. The very beginning was like 10 minutes of lecture or whatever, and that's when the Gen Z kid basically put their, did the IQ test, right? And then about 10 minutes after, they're like, the teacher's like, all right, we're going to put you in random groups. And James, the subscriber, was grouped up with the Gen Z kid. So basically, they go into a group. And, James, the subscriber, it's like a very basic project or whatever, but it was a math class. So they were like, all right, class, like, we just learned this new topic yesterday. I went over it today earlier, and now try and solve this problem in groups. So in the group, the Gen Z kid, James, and two other kids sit down, and immediately the Gen Z kid is like, hi, like, I just want to let you know that I should be leading this problem because I'm actually a genius. And, so everyone kind of looks at him, and like James looks at him, everyone kind of gives him this really weird look because I don't know about you, but just going around calling yourself a genius is kind of a weird thing to do. So yeah, the Gen Z kid is like, yeah, I don't want any of you simpletons ruining this problem for me. Which, like, bro, what do you mean ruining this problem for me? Like, if they get the wrong answer, it's not even a big deal. This isn't like graded. This is just the teacher's just putting people into groups so that, if people don't understand it as well, they might be able to lean on their classmates, and maybe two classmates that almost understand it are able to put their brains together to come up with the right solution. Not that it's graded and that everyone else who is in a quote unquote genius like the Gen Z kid believes that he is going to suffer some sort of consequence because they mess it up or whatever. So, yeah, it's pretty strange. So, basically, right, the kids in the group are like, okay, bro, whatever. James, the subscriber, also kind of didn't care because James is like, okay, well, it's not like I want to do this math problem. It's pretty early in the morning. I don't totally know what's going on. So, yeah, not actually a huge deal that, the Gen Z kid is like, oh, I gotta be like, I don't know, I gotta make sure that, I do the problem because you guys are gonna mess it up or whatever. It's just genuinely not that big of a deal. So sure enough, the Gen Z kid starts to hack away the problem or whatever, right? And completely messes it up because it's not like the Gen Z kid has ever been paying attention in class because they're preoccupied with their studies in TikTok usage, bro. And you know who the one person in their study is? Themselves. So yeah, sure enough, the Gen Z kid says, oh yeah, the answer is going to be 28. And the funny thing too, this was a type of math problem where there was the answer wasn't just purely a number. It was y equals 48 plus 10x or something like that. So when the Gen Z kid just says, oh, the answer is 28, I think someone in the group, it wasn't James, but it was someone else in the group, was like, hey man, the answer has to be y equals mx. It has to be in y equals mx plus b format. And the Gen Z kid's like, are you questioning my genius authority? Do you really think that a genius like me would mess up a problem like this? And, well, yeah, I guess, because you're wrong, bro. But anyways, yeah, so the kid in the group that wasn't the subscriber was like, okay. I don't know, man. It's you don't really want to fight these people. You don't really want to, yeah, they can be ignorant, they can be annoying, but also because they're both ignorant and annoying, what's the point? Genuinely, what's the point in fighting these people to try and convince them that they're wrong when they are so full of themselves and truly believe that they are always, no matter what, in the right? Yeah. So, sure enough, eventually the teacher's like, okay, well, guys, I've given you 10 minutes to do this problem. That should be ample enough time. If you didn't finish it, don't worry about it. This wasn't graded or anything. Let me go over the solution on the board. So the Gen Z kid is sitting in their chair, super smug, super oh, yes, I already know the answer because my genius intellect solved it in 0.1 milliseconds, when in reality, I think they just, pulled a random answer out of their butt and assumed since they are a self-proclaimed genius that it must be correct. So, yeah, the teacher goes on the board, solves the problem, And the answer is like y equals 2 plus 48x. I don't know, something like that. It is not in the form, it's not the answer the Gen Z kid gave, but it's not even in the right form, right? It's a completely different format. So the Gen Z kid raises their hand, and the teacher, expecting questions as this is new material, is like, hey, like, Gen Z kid, like, what's up? And the Gen Z kid is like, teacher, I believe you made a mistake. And, everyone looks at him like, okay. Because, look, here's the thing. Teachers sometimes make mistakes. Actually, all the time, they make mistakes when they're writing on the board. However, most of the time, they're kind of like clerical errors. They're really small errors that don't really matter, but it's good to correct them just in case a kid gets confused. For example, in math class, and I take some pretty hard, calc series, linear algebra, discrete math, stuff like I've taken some pretty difficult math classes. The teachers are always almost right with the topics that they're teaching, but sometimes they'll like add 25 and like 14 wrong together. Like sometimes they'll just add two numbers wrong together on the board, and someone will politely raise their hand, point it out, and then the teacher's like, oh, yeah, my fault. Apparently, when you're like teaching or whatever, you can do those like small math mistakes that just happen a lot more often. And it's a good idea to point those out so that people that are like barely following don't put down, like, because they're going to write down what's written on the board verbatim and then probably read back and try and understand it. Making the small corrections can actually help out a lot. However, it is a totally different thing when a student raises their hand and basically accuses the teacher of being wrong with the base material. This can happen, and I've seen it happen before, but it's a lot more rare. And obviously, in the Gen Z kids' case, no, the teacher's right on this. So the teacher's like, oh, did I like add something wrong? Which is a fair response because the teacher knows that they're doing it fundamentally correctly, but, is open to the fact that they might have made additional, like little mistakes like that. They're very open to the fact that they might have made those mistakes. But the Gen Z kid is like, well, actually, teacher, the answer is 28. And the teacher looks at him and is like, 28 what? Because remember, I think this was like solving a linear equation or something. So it's like you need it to be in y equals mx plus b form, or I don't know, you could have a few more formats, but you can't just have like 28. That's not an answer that works at all in any situation. Yeah, so the Gen Z kid then goes on to explain that the teacher has done the entire problem wrong and that the answer is actually 28. The teacher fires back saying that, no, they did not do the entire answer wrong, as the answer can't just be 28 by itself. It needs to be associated. First of all, it needs to be y equals format, and that also this was not a flat line, so it wasn't going to be y equals 28 or something like that. The teacher says it has to have an x component because it's like, it's a function. It's not just it's not, you're just solving for one thing. It's like, it's a function, right? So sure enough, the Gen Z kid, since they believe that they are actually a genius, says, well, actually, I don't know that you should be fighting with me because I recently did an IQ test and it scored me as an actual genius. So the whole class kind of looks at the Gen Z kid. I think some of them thought that the Gen Z kid actually did really take an IQ test and did really get 140, 120, I don't know, something really good. And some of them were like, whoa, because remember, freshman high school, who even knows? Other kids were pretty skeptical. Some of them thought that the Gen Z kid was flat out lying. Others thought that they were wildly exaggerating and something along those lines. So the teacher's like, well, okay, I don't know that much about IQ tests. I also don't really know, how much that has to do with anything because I can tell you that what you did was incorrect. That's not how you answer this. You might have the largest IQ in the world, but this is math and this is how it's done. And I'm sure I'm going to get some PhD math student from Stanford in the comments going, well, actually, there are multiple dimensions, dude. Okay, for the sake of this video, no, right? For the sake of this video, what I say goes. Anyways, so the Gen Z kid is like, well, you shouldn't fight with someone with such a high IQ, like Mr. Whatever. Like, you should really just bow down and accept what I say because you know what? I'm probably right. And I think the teacher was just having a bad day because I think in most cases, this teacher and probably other teachers in most cases would just chalk this up to a kid being a little jerk, being like a little twerp or whatever, and just kind of ignore it and move on, be like, haha, funny, whatever, and just kind of ignore it. Maybe some teachers would penalize the kid, but this teacher decides to go full savage mode. Bro actually decides that, he's like, all right, well then let's actually see. So the teacher's like, all right, so did you do an IQ test online? And the kid's like, yeah. So the teacher goes into Google, types up IQ test, and pulls up an IQ test. And the teacher's like, you know what? We're going to solve this debate. Whoever gets a higher score is right, which is completely crazy. I don't fully side with the teacher on this one either. Yeah, so I don't know. I can't really get behind the teacher on this. I think it's pretty immature, but I think the teacher was just genuinely having a bad day. And also, the teacher was kind of risking something. Since these IQ tests, a lot of them are kind of like problem-based like puzzles or whatever, and there's a decent chance that the teacher is genuinely much better at mathematics, but just happens to score less on this IQ test. And then he really did put up like, oh, if you score higher than me, then you're actually correct. But the whole class is kind of like getting really interested because they would never expect their teacher to say something like this. So the Gen Z kid's like, fine, okay, let's do it. And yeah, basically what happens next is the teacher and the Gen Z kid both do the IQ tests, and then the results are shown live in front of the whole class. Completely ridiculous. But in the meantime, I'd like you to, 1 second, comment down below IQ test. In the comment section down below, that'll be the secret word of the day. And while you're in the comment section, make sure to check out the pinned comment, as there is a link to my Spotify page in which I upload these stories as podcasts on there, as well as a link to 2 other channels which I post on daily. Please subscribe to both of them to help me out. Anyways, let's get back to it. And of course, leave a like in the video to claim your free nothing. Of course, man, you already know. So yeah, sure enough, the teacher pulls it up, and I think the Gen Z kid was probably quaking a little bit in their boots. Like, they were probably a little bit nervous for this. But they were putting up a front. They were putting up this look of like, oh yeah, I totally know what's going on right now. Like, I'm not even worried since I'm actually a genius, right? So sure enough, the teacher pulls up an IQ test. Probably just one that they got from online. And once again, I do need to point out that there are probably some errors in this method of, approaching this problem, right? There's definitely better ways to go about this. And I don't think looking online and looking up IQ test and then after doing so, just like, I don't know, I don't think that's the best way to go about it. Not the best method to approach this. However, I will also say that who cares? This is pretty funny. So the teacher pulls up an IQ test and basically goes on the kid's laptop and says to one of the students, hey, make sure he doesn't cheat, like watch him. Because I don't know, I think the Gen Z kid probably would have like typed up every question into Google or whatever and just needed someone to monitor. So the teacher goes behind their desk and starts taking the test and instructs the Gen Z kid to take the test as well. There was like 30 questions, which is once again kind of ridiculous that the teacher decided to use class time to do their little, basically dunk it on this kid in front of everyone, which is kind of a waste of time, but a funny story nonetheless. So I'll continue with it. But sure enough, the Gen Z kid starts, typing up their answers. So, yeah, anyways, guess who the kid who's instructed to watch the Gen Z kid is? Yes, James, the subscriber. So James watches as the Gen Z kid opens up the IQ test, and it's timed, so they're supposed to take about 20 minutes to do it, and goes through the questions and clicks randomly. Once again, the Gen Z kid finishes within 3 minutes. That Gen Z kid is like, done. And the teacher's like, okay, if you really don't want to use that time, go ahead. I think for a second, maybe a split mere millisecond, the teacher was a little bit concerned, thinking, oh my God, wait, is this kid actually a genius? Like, maybe I am wrong. However, yeah, the kid was not a genius. The kid just put in random answers. And James kind of looks at his classmates with a look of like, what? To kind of signal that the Gen Z kid was doing something a little strange, which he was. He was just putting in random answers, and, well, I mean, he did get the, I don't know, I guess he got what he wanted, so maybe it wasn't too strange. But, yeah, so sure enough, eventually the teacher's done too. And the teacher's like, okay, don't hit submit yet, give me your computer. And so the Gen Z kid hands over the computer to the teacher. The teacher, puts both computers, like, on the screen or whatever, and hits, submit on both of them. And the teacher has a little smirk on their face, kind of indicating that the teacher is somewhat happy with the result of this IQ test, which, however you see, that's however you see it. Anyways, right, so sure enough, the teacher continues to be like, all right, well, as I said, I will screen share the results to everyone, and we can finally come to a conclusion on who is correct. Which, once again, there's a lot of issues with the way that the teacher went about this, I'm not going to lie. And also, an IQ test will not show who's correct, as, the Gen Z kid could have potentially randomly guessed perfectly for 30 out of 30 questions. That is very, 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 very statistically unlikely, and I think the teacher was kind of aware of that, but yeah. You could kind of tell that the teacher was kind of rubbing it in the Gen Z's face without even showing the score yet, as the teacher was like, well, I'm glad we did this so you guys can really, for once and for all, know if you can trust me or not. Because at this point, the teacher knows the results of both the tests. So yeah, sure enough, the teacher shows the first test result. And the IQ test is the first result from when the teacher did the IQ test. And I think the teacher got like a above average score. Teacher didn't score in as a genius or whatever, but it says, congratulations, we estimate. Remember, the online tests are pretty BS, so take this with a grain of salt. But, we estimate your IQ is 115 or whatever. You are in the 80th percentile. I took that out of my butt. That might be completely wrong, but it's probably close to being correct. Anyways, and the teacher's like, okay, well, that's my result. Let's see what the result of the Gen Z kid is. So now the teacher screen shares the computer of the Gen Z kid and, reveals the results. The results say, you scored, a 60 IQ, you are profoundly stupid or something like that. And you scored in the bottom 10% of people. We don't know how you're functioning in society with an IQ like that. Good luck getting a job. Okay, I don't think it said all of that, but that was basically what it's implying. So the Gen Z kid, I don't think actually deserved a score like that, but remember, they randomly chose all 30 answers. So in the first time, randomly choosing got them a genius score on their IQ test. But in the second time, it got them a lowest possible score possible, because guess what? When there are 4 to 5 answers per question, and there's 30 questions, and you guess randomly on each question, the odds of you doing well are just so incredibly low. If you guys are stats majors and want to give me the exact answer in the comments, you can. I'm not doing that in my head. I barely remember. I took stats a while ago. It's been a second. Also, I think we did that in discrete math, but it's been a second. So yeah, the Gen Z kid's reaction to this is just pure silence. Because the Gen Z kid, you can't come back from this, basically. The Gen Z kid might be like, oh, you messed with the results. But then James, the subscriber, would be like, nope, he did not mess with the results. Or the Gen Z kid could be like, oh, this way of doing it is stupid. And then, they'd be asked, okay, well, then how did you determine that you were a genius? And the Gen Z kid would have to be like, an online test, right? So the Gen Z kid was just silent, basically admitting defeat. The teacher's like, well, then, we can proceed with class because of this whole debacle has been solved and finished. Today we get the story time of the cringiest Gen Z kid ever who tries to go viral on TikTok by licking the most disgusting places around school. This kid does some of the grossest stuff ever and ends up getting so ill in the final period that he has that day that he has to go to the actual hospital. This is a pretty crazy story, so sit back, relax, subscribe if you're new, leave a like on the video to claim your free nothing, and let's jump into it. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted today's story Luke. So anyways, right, there was a kid in Luke's class who we're just going to call the Gen Z kid. And sometimes people get mad at me being like, Connor, oh, maybe he's not actually in Gen Z. Oh, you're in Gen Z too. Dude, I know that. I'm not calling him a Gen Z kid necessarily because he is in the he is from Gen Z. I'm calling him a Gen Z kid because of his obsession with TikTok, canceling people on Twitter. You already know how it is. This kid needed to go viral on TikTok. No, he didn't want to. He physically needed to. Bro acted like he got a doctor's prescription that he needed to go viral or he would actually pass away. So, and the Gen Z kid decided that he was going to go viral, and the way that he was going to go viral was going to be, he was going to do something stupid, he was going to record it and post it on TikTok. So anyways, right, some of the boys were just hanging out. Luke, the subscriber, was chilling with them, and that's when the Gen Z kid comes up to them. He's like, guys, you don't want to miss this. And, whenever someone comes up to you and says, you don't want to miss this, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely coming out to see what's up. I'm definitely trying to figure out what's good. If I don't want to miss it, then, man, I don't want to miss it. And so obviously the guys are like, yo, what's up? And the Gen Z kid basically said hey, I'm going to be recording this TikTok and I'm going to go around and I'm going to lick really gross stuff. And Luke's like, dude, what? Don't do that. And the Gen Z kid's like, dude, no, I'm going to be famous on TikTok, bro. I'm going to be rich, which by the way, being famous on TikTok does not correlate to being rich at all. You make $1 per 100 billion views on there. So yeah, good luck, bro. Yeah, so anyways, right, sure enough that, everyone's like, all right, well, we do have to go see this. And Luke is says to the Gen Z kid one more time, he's like, bro, I'm telling you this is a bad idea because I don't know about you, but going around looking random stuff in a gross middle school, a gross middle school or high school. I don't know if they were middle school or high school. It was either, Luke didn't tell me specifically, but I'm going to guess it was either late middle school, 8th grade or something, or maybe freshman in high school. This is definitely freshman type behavior, if you know what I mean. So yeah, just think about it for a second. This kid's probably going to go to the bathroom. He's probably going to lick on the floor. A lot of gross stuff. And I already told you in the intro, he needs to go to the hospital for how bad it is. But anyways, Luke, kind of begrudgingly goes along. I mean, he does want to see. Like, Luke's not gonna, he tells me, don't make it sound like I'm actually an angel. I'm not a saint here. I definitely did want to see what was going to go down because, hey, man, life at school apparently is kind of boring for Luke. So he's like, you know what? This is a once in a lifetime experience. Hopefully it is once in a lifetime and this doesn't happen again, or he doesn't surround himself with people who do this again. But yeah, so they go around, and the first place that they go to is the boys' bathroom. So the Gen Z kid hands his phone over to one of the guys, not Luke, but one of the other guys, and says, start recording. So the other guy starts recording, and Luke's like, what's up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new TikTok. Today, I'm going to be doing the Lick Everything Challenge. By the way, that's not a challenge. And also, back when I used to do commentary videos, and I know a lot of my commentary channel friends, when it seems like we've covered so many TikTok challenges, and I feel like every TikTok challenge ends up in something stupid, like the silhouette challenge where people were literally putting blank on the internet and not even realizing it, or like all these other challenges where people were like dying and stuff. Like, bro, stop. You don't want the TikTok cloud actually isn't that good, bro. It's not that good. I don't know. Do something normal. Go read a book. But anyways, right, so he's like, yeah, guys, we're going to be doing the Lick Everything Challenge, and the first thing I'm going to lick is the bathroom floor right next to the toilet, which, all right, man. I don't know if you guys have been, look, some of you guys might be homeschooled, so let me just tell you a little, let me give you the sauce right now. The guys' bathroom in high school and middle school is so bad. Like, guys' bathroom is honestly one of the worst places ever, especially if you get it towards the end of the day. But even right after, it's like, I don't know, man. I swear, like, I get the cleaning staff clean it every single day. And honestly, shout out to the cleaning staff. They need to deal with the worst stuff and they get paid so little. So, like, shout out cleaning staff. But I swear, like, I get there 5 minutes after the cleaning staff have gone in, and some guys already peed all over the floor. How do you miss? Do you need to go to target practice, bro? Like, seriously, what's going on right now? But yeah, anyways, right? So, one of the guys is recording as the Gen Z kid goes up to the toilet, and you guys might be thinking, okay, well, the floor of the bathroom is pretty gross, but dude, I don't just mean anywhere on the floor. I mean right next to the toilet. Which, yeah, right next to the toilet is actually worse than anywhere else on the floor because think about it. That's where people are missing when they're peeing. That's where if someone has an extra terrible number 2 time, they're gonna be missing a little bit. Oh, it's just so bad, bro. And especially right underneath the toilet, like the cleaning staff probably don't even clean the floors. They're probably more about cleaning the toilet and obviously the toilet, the sink, and maybe they clean the floors like once a week or something. But even if they clean the floors, they're probably not scrubbing all around the toilet because, like, I don't know, man. Whenever I go into public bathrooms or high school bathrooms, it's always like the toilet seat underneath is so grimy, but thankfully you don't have to sit on that or interact with it. But yeah, the kid literally licks at that point. And, the guy's like, oh, man, I wasn't recording. The Gen Z kid's like, dude! And he's like, just kidding, which would have been actually pretty funny if the kid wasn't recording at all. Like, imagine basically giving yourself chlamydia and the guy doesn't even record it so you can post on TikTok for 15 views or whatever. So anyways, right, this is the first place. They hit the guy's bathroom. It's awful. But the challenge doesn't end yet because they're going to 3 locations, bro. So they start walking over. The Gen Z kid is leading them in a new direction. And at this point, like, the subscriber Luke isn't even sure if he wants to keep walking with these guys. Because he's like, I don't know, he's got a relatively, I don't know, not easy stomach, but he's queasy pretty easily. And after watching that, like, Luke almost had to run to one of the stalls to use it, bro, to throw up in. Because he just watched some kid lick the grimy ass seat, bro. Oh my God. Anyways, right, so yeah, sure enough, Luke is a little bit like, I don't know if I want to go. And I almost called him the Minecraft kid or the spoiled kid. The Gen Z kid brings them to the guy's locker room. If you guys are homeschooled, I'll give you the sauce again. Dude, guys' locker rooms are bad too. Maybe not as bad as like the toilet seat in the men's bathroom, but bro, guys' locker rooms, some of them are okay, but the school, at least the locker room at Luke's school, it was pretty bad, bro. Yeah, so anyways, right, sure enough, once again, the Gen Z kid is like, hands his phone over to someone, this time to Luke, actually, is like, bro, record it. And Luke's like, dude, you don't have to do this. Like, you really don't have to. I think this is a bad idea. And the Gen Z kid's like, bro, I'm already in. Like, I've already started. I gotta finish. By the way, sunk cost fallacy right there, but whatever. Um, I'm not really necessarily expecting eighth graders to fully internalize the truths of the sunk cost fallacy, but whatever. Yeah, so he goes around and he's like, hey, man, can you record? And, Luke very begrudgingly is like, okay, sure. I mean, Luke didn't want to have him do it and not get a recording, right? I guess. So yeah, sure enough, he's like, all right, guys, well, now we're in the boys' locker room. This place is pretty gross, and I'm going to lick this. And so Luke, or not Luke, sorry, the Gen Z kid goes into some kid's locker and, like, pulls out an actual dirty pair of underpants. And everyone was like, no, dude, don't do it. Like, I don't know why now they were so, like, worried about him doing it when the kid literally was, licking the toilet seat, licking the floor in the guy's bathroom. Like, at that point, I would have been like, bro, it's not worth it. But now they all unanimously are like, no. But all the Gen Z kid does is he looks at Luke and he's like, hey, bro, you still recording? And Luke's like, yeah. And yeah, I don't want to go into great detail, but he does end up licking the underwear. Super gross. Super bad. You hate to see it. Everyone's like, oh my God. And Luke, like, actually has to close his eyes. It's so disgusting. Guys, please don't do this. Like, this has happened. Like, not to me. I've not done this, okay, just for clarification. But yeah, in high school, man, I definitely see stuff like this happening. Kids they just want attention, bro, and you think the best way to get attention is to become kind of like a public spectacle. Also, if you're trying to, like, blow up online or do something or get famous or whatever, first of all, you don't want to be famous. Having a following is totally fine. Like, I'm not famous, and I'm very happy where I'm at. I would not want to be like Charlie D'Amelio or something. But also, you're not going to have a long-term fame or, like, business venture if you blow up over being a clown. Like, think about the people on TikTok that, like, I don't know, they went into the grocery store, licked the ice cream, and put it back. They got so much attention, like an insane amount of attention. Where are they now? Yeah, you don't know because you didn't want to follow them for what they did. You were just looking at them because they were the public clown of the day. You don't want to be that, guys. So if you want to do something, put out something of value, put out something you enjoy, record your own story times if you want. I am totally fine if you nab everything I do. Seriously, I will like encourage you to do that if you want to try. But yeah, anyways, right, so the Gen Z kid almost looked completely unfazed, and he's like, all right, well, time to go to the final place. And at this point, everyone was like, dude, I don't even want to know where we're going. I don't even want to know, dude. Like, this is just so gross. And yeah, they were all like, dude, can we please stop? And, like, the Gen Z kid's like, no, guys, like, I need someone to record it. Like, at this point, like, you've already done a little bit. Might as well help me go all the way. Which, by the way, once again, sunk cost fallacy. Just because you start something doesn't mean you have to finish it. Even if you've already started it and you've put in time, money, whatever, right? Because all you're going to do is put in more time, money, or whatever, right? So sure enough, especially if something's not worth it at the end. Anyways, right, so they're walking and the Gen Z kid takes them outside. And at this point, like, there's just so many possible terrible things he could be doing that, like, I don't know, the subscriber Luke is like, please spare me from this. Yeah, so let me give you guys a little bit of a hint. So outside, dogs will be walked, and if you're not like a good pet owner, you will probably leave their number two sitting around. As a good pet owner, I always do my best to pick it up. You know, you got to pick it up with a bag or a scoop or whatever. Just good for the rest of your neighborhood, right? But let me just, that's your hint. And also, let's just do the secret word of the day right now. So if you made it this far into the video, go ahead and comment dog down below. And while you're down there, make sure, if you haven't already, to check out the pinned comment, as there are two links. One to the Spotify page, in which I upload all these stories as podcasts. Go help me out, and if you listen to Spotify, listen to these stories on there too. Follow me on there. And also subscribe to the other channel that's linked in the description. That is my Storytime animated channel. I think I'll have another one out this week, but I don't know. I got a lot of stuff to do, man. We'll see. But I am posting basically weekly on there. Anyways, let's get back to it before I kind of diverge too much. Yeah, so anyways, right, sure enough, the Gen Z kid, I'm not even going to go into great detail because I'm not trying to gross myself out either. But anyways, he brings them outside. He brings them to the place where people normally let their dogs go do their business and not pick it up. At this point, Luke is like, no. And all the other kids are like, dude, no. And the Gen Z kid's like, guys, I need to do something crazy. I want to go viral on TikTok. I'm not going to go viral by, I don't know, licking the wall or licking a book. Like, that's not going to make me go viral, man. Do you want me to be happy? Do you want me to be happy? Which arguably, yes, they do, because they don't want you to go to the actual hospital, which he ends up having to go to, as you guys will see. So, they wanted him to be happy. And also, there's no guarantee this video will blow up. I mean, honestly, like, you could post one thing I like that's just true about a lot of social media platforms or just media platforms where you can publish. A lot of times you can make a video that's a lot better than someone else's, but someone else's will just get more attention. There's a lot of factors, but sometimes it's kind of just random. I mean, it really isn't random the more you look into it, but there is, at least in the very beginning stages, there's a bit of luck involved. So you could put 1 billion years into one video and it might get 10 views. But yeah, so this might even be for nothing, as a little bit of a foreshadowing right there that it might all be for nothing. But I don't want to divulge exactly how much for nothing it actually was. So yeah, sure enough, the guy's like, I need you to record me right now. Yeah, so one of the guys recorded him, licking something that comes out of a dog, but right. And Luke, he's just turning away. For all Luke knows, honestly, even though he saw the video afterwards, for all Luke would have known, he didn't do it because Luke wasn't even paying attention. He turned around. He knew that Luke was like, I'm actually going to have to run to the bathroom and puke if I watch this. This is so disgusting. Which, guys, let me just tell you a little something. In evolution, or like, we've evolved, right, to have kind of like natural mechanisms. When you're grossed out by something, that's probably your body like evolving to make you not want to do something. There's a reason why all these things are gross, because they're also dangerous for you. You can get super sick, as we'll see in 1 second. Yeah, so anyways, the Gen Z kid's like, all right, guys, well, I hope you had fun today. And everyone was like, oh my God, I'm going to be sick. I'm reconsidering everything. Yeah, so the thing is, the subscriber doesn't see the Gen Z kid for most of the day. However, they're in a big class at the end of the day together. It's like a relatively large kind of lecture type class or whatever. Or it's like a big math class with not a lot of in-person. So there's a lot of kids, and it just happens to be the case that the Gen Z kid and, the subscriber Luke are in the same class. So anyways, let's skip ahead till then. Oh, by the way, the Gen Z kid did post on his TikTok account the video, and the video got like 15 views in an hour, which, let me just say that, first like hour performance doesn't always indicate how well a video will do. I've had plenty of videos get like, I don't know, 1,000 views in the hour and then end up getting like, I don't know, 500,000 after a year. Like, that happens all the time. However, it can also be a pretty good indicator. Like, if people aren't engaging with your video, they probably won't engage with it later. But anyways, right, so it's got like 15 views in an hour. And so at this point, Luke was actually kind of curious how the Gen Z kid was doing. So Luke sits down in his seat and he looks at the door and he sees the Gen Z kid walk through the door. The Gen Z kid comes in. He is pale. Bro has actually lost all the blood in his face. Yeah, so Luke sees the kid come in. He's pale. He's sweating. And the Gen Z kid actually sits down kind of close to Luke. Not like right next to him, but pretty close to Luke. So yeah, Luke looks over and he's able to see the Gen Z kid a lot closer up. This kid is like, all the blood is drained out of his face. He's sweating buckets. He just looks terrible. Like, obviously there was something gross that he ate that's now messing with him. So like, Luke turns over and like is like, yo, to the Gen Z kid, are you good, bro? And the Gen Z kid's like, yeah, I'm okay. And he basically said it in the most not okay way manner that someone could do. Like, if you were told to say something in the tone of like someone who is on the verge of dying, then that's exactly how you tell it. But he tried to say I'm good he said I'm good with his mouth, but he said I'm not doing good with the rest of his body. So yeah, Luke's kind of concerned, and in the back of his head he's like, do I just call a paramedic? Like, I know what's up with this kid, and it doesn't seem like he's going to turn himself in. Or not turn himself in, that's probably the wrong terminology. I meant more like, get himself the help he needs, right? So Luke's like, all right, I got to pay attention to this kid. And so class starts going on, and he looks over. This kid is sweating more. Somehow he looks even more pale, which he didn't even think was possible. And Luke's like, all right, this isn't good. This is not good. Okay, maybe maybe I should really consider doing something. Like, this actually seems like it might be a problem. So yeah, Luke is looking, and at one point, he looks over, and the spoil kid, not spoil kid, the Gen Z kid, his eyes are like kind of like closing, almost like he's like about to fall asleep. And then the Gen Z kid literally collapses and just falls onto the ground. The whole class goes silent. Everyone turns around to see the Gen Z kid on the ground, and the teacher's like, is everything okay back there? Which, like, obviously not, bro. So yeah, anyways, right, Luke at this point thought, okay, I should really step up. So when the teacher walks back, Luke's like, hey, I just want to let you know, I think I know what's wrong with the kid. And the teacher's like, yeah, what's up? Like, this kid just fainted. And Luke's like, all right, well, I know that he was like going around like licking really gross things for attention today. I think he probably licked something a little bit too gross, and it got I don't know, it got to him or something. He should probably get checked up. Like, he probably needs fluid or something. So yeah, sure enough, the teacher's like, oh, okay, yeah, this could be serious. Teacher goes ahead and calls like the nurses. The nurses come over. They decide, okay, this is we can't just throw a bag of ice on him and call it a day. Like, we got to actually do something. So sure enough, they go ahead and they call they call like the actual ambulance, whatever. They call the actual hospital. So sure enough, ambulance comes. Dude's stretched out of class. Like, class is over basically at this point. Everyone's just sitting in their seat talking about what's going on. Basically, this kid's TikTok of him licking a bunch of gross stuff starts getting spreaded around, which he actually starts getting views. Like, he goes to like 100 views, which, by the way, 100 views on TikTok happens randomly when you post like your face and nothing else. Like, that's not really an accomplishment or anything. But yeah, sure enough, his TikTok gets like posted around a bit more. It actually starts getting traction. Like, it starts getting like 50 views a minute or something. I think the algorithm noticed all the attention. But here's the thing. Here's the plot twist, guys. So the TikTok got deleted because it broke community guidelines, bro. He was starting to blow up, and then he got yeeted, which I mean, you posted something like super vile. I understand why it got taken down. So yeah, the Gen Z kid went to the hospital. They gave him some like antibiotics or something, gave him some like fluid or whatever through IV, and he was actually good after a couple of days. But bro definitely learned his lesson, and it was like the most ironic thing was the fact his TikTok got deleted. If you want to support the channel, make sure to go ahead and watch one of the videos on screen right now, and peace.